The galaxy believed humans were gone. Old star maps showed Earth as a cold and quiet place. The symbol beside its name meant silence. No ships. No signals. No life worth noting. Many empires trusted those maps. They said humans burned bright and then faded. They said humans could not last. James did not believe that. He sat alone in a small listening room, far from busy stations and loud trade routes. The room was dark, lit only by slow-moving screens. Lines of light moved across them like calm waves. James watched those waves with tired eyes. He had done this work for many years. He listened to space when others stopped caring. Emily stood behind him, arms crossed, head tilted slightly. She listened too, not with machines but with instinct. She had a gift for hearing patterns and noise. To her, the stars were never quiet. They whispered all the time. "Still nothing?" she asked softly. James shook his head. "Nothing clear," he said. "Just echoes. Old ones." They both knew what the records said. Earth had gone dark generations ago. Some said it was war. Some said disease. Others said humans simply left and never came back. The truth did not matter anymore. Silence was enough for the galaxy. But James kept listening. The station drifted at the edge of known space. Few ships passed by. No one expected discoveries here. That was why James asked to be posted there. Silence made lies easier to hear. Hours passed. The stars stayed calm. Emily began to turn away, ready to rest. That was when the noise changed. It was small. Almost nothing. A thin thread of sound hidden deep under cosmic static. James felt it before he saw it. His hand froze over the controls. "Emily," he said. His voice was low. "Listen." She leaned forward. Her eyes narrowed. At first she heard nothing. Then she felt it. A pattern. Not random. Not natural. "It's shaped," she whispered. James adjusted the filters. The noise sharpened. The thread grew stronger. It was not a signal in the normal sense. No numbers. No clear waves. It felt older. Slower. As if the stars themselves were carrying it. Then it happened. A single word rose from the noise. It was not spoken. It was not said. It was simply there. A name. A human name. James's breath caught. Emily stepped back, her hand covering her mouth. The word echoed again, soft but clear, woven into starlight itself. It did not repeat like a beacon. It drifted, calm and steady. "This is impossible," Emily said. James shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "This is human." The systems around them reacted. Nearby sensors flared. Distant relays woke from standby. The station lights dimmed as power shifted. The stars outside seemed unchanged, but something had moved. Far away empires felt it. A patrol ship on the border of a rigid empire slowed without orders. Its crew felt uneasy. The captain could not explain why his hands trembled. On a trade world, a council session paused as a low alert sounded and then faded. No threat detected. No reason given. Still no one spoke for a long time. Ancient defenses along forgotten borders powered on for the first time in centuries. Old AIs searched their memory banks and found files marked obsolete. Inside those files was the same word. The name. It was not a call to war. It was not a warning of attack. That made it worse. Empires understood war. They understood threats. This was neither. James replayed the data again and again. Each time the word remained. It did not grow louder. It did not fade. It simply existed, as if the universe had decided to remember something it was told to forget. Emily looked at the star map. Lines began to appear on the display. Not routes. Not borders. Paths of influence. The whisper touched system after system. Not through space alone but through memory. "They can hear it," she said. James nodded. "They always could," he replied. "They just stopped listening." Messages began to arrive. Short, careful, polite in ways that showed fear. Nearby powers asked if the station detected any weapons fire, any fleet movement, any human activity. James sent the same reply to all of them. No hostile action detected. That answer made things worse. In the quiet that followed, James leaned back and closed his eyes. He thought of old stories. Of humans who crossed oceans with no promise of return. Of voices carried by wind and water. Humans had always left marks. Not loud ones. Lasting ones. Emily watched the stars through the wide window. They looked the same as always. Cold. Distant. Beautiful. But now she felt watched, not by eyes but by memory. "What do we do?" she asked. James opened his eyes. A slow smile touched his face. It was not proud. It was not cruel. It was calm. We listen, he said. The whisper continued. The name drifted on. Empires held their breath. Old powers checked weapons they hoped never to use. Younger species felt fear they could not explain. Somewhere beyond the charts, beyond silence, humanity was no longer gone. The stars had spoken. And the galaxy remembered why it once trembled. Michael stood at the center of the navigation deck, hands resting on the rail as the ship drifted out of jump. The stars ahead looked broken, scattered in strange lines. These were old routes, once busy, now almost forgotten. Maps marked them as unstable, unsafe, or simply useless. Yet the whisper had passed through them all the same. Jessica worked beside him, her fingers moving fast across the console. Data flowed in slow streams. Signal echoes. Fleet movements. Closed gates. Silent worlds. It passed through here, she said. Clear as before. Michael nodded. He did not smile. Every stop felt the same, and that worried him more than open fear would have. They had been sent to trace the whisper, not to follow it fully, but to understand its path. The order was simple. Observe. Record. Do not interfere. Humans had learned patience the hard way. The first system they entered was quiet. Too quiet. A defense grid hung in place, fully powered, but no ships moved to meet them. Stations stayed dark. Michael opened a wideband channel. This is a human survey vessel, he said calmly. We come without weapons active. No answer came. Minutes passed. Jessica leaned closer to the display. They locked their borders before we arrived, she said. No battle signs. No damage. Michael exhaled slowly. Fear, he said. But controlled. They moved on. At the second stop they found a fleet. Dozens of ships held position near a jump gate. Engines were hot, but weapons stayed cold. When the human ship appeared, the fleet did not advance. It slowed instead, spreading out, giving space. Michael watched their movement. They're trained, he said. But they don't know for what. Jessica sent a passive scan. No combat alerts, she replied. Just caution. Again, no shots were fired. No warnings given. The humans passed through untouched. System after system showed the same signs. Borders closed early. Fleets paused mid-route. Trade lanes emptied as ships turned back without orders. There were no wrecks. No burned worlds. No signs of force. Fear without battle. Jessica marked each system with a soft light on the map. The lights formed a trail. A quiet path through places long ignored. They're not reacting to us, she said. They reacted before we arrived. Michael nodded. The whisper reached them first. They studied the data during long travel hours. The whisper did not act like a command. It did not repeat or demand attention. It did not grow louder. It was steady, calm, and wide. It feels like memory, Jessica said one night. Like something old waking up. Michael agreed. He had read the old records. Not the official ones, but the forgotten files. Stories of humans who stayed behind to hold lines others fled from. Of small lights kept alive in dark places. Of help given quietly without reward. Humans were never the loudest force. They endured. At the edge of a dead system they stopped again. The star there was dim and red. The planets were cracked and lifeless. Sensors showed no active cities, no stations. Yet the whisper was strong. Jessica frowned. Why here? She asked. Michael zoomed in on the scans. Something survived, he said. Deep beneath the surface of a broken world, a structure still stood. Human-made. A relay beacon powered by a failing core. It had no weapons. No defenses. Only a message loop. The whisper did not come from it, but it passed through it, amplified gently like a hand guiding sound along a wall. They planted these everywhere, Jessica said softly. Michael nodded. Not to control, he said. To connect. They logged the site and moved on. Behind them, the beacon continued to glow, a small point of light in a dead system. As they traveled farther, they noticed another pattern. Wherever the whisper passed, conflict slowed. Border fights paused. Long wars entered quiet talks. Old enemies stopped advancing, unsure why their anger felt smaller. The stars were not shouting. They were warning. Michael received a message from a nearby coalition. It was short and careful. Are humans returning in force? Michael answered honestly. No, he said. We are returning in presence. That answer was not understood, but it was felt. Jessica watched a live feed from a distant empire. Their grand fleet had turned inward, ships moving to protect worlds instead of pushing outward. Leaders spoke of caution. Of waiting. They fear invasion, she said. Michael shook his head. They fear being judged, he replied. The whisper carried no threat. That made it powerful. It reminded the galaxy of something it had pushed aside. That strength did not always roar. Sometimes it stayed. At the final stop on their assigned route, they reached a system once ruled by a cruel empire. The empire was gone now. Its worlds lay free but scarred. Michael expected tension. Instead they found open space. No fleets. No weapons. Just stations rebuilding slowly, lights flickering back to life. When the human ship arrived, a message came immediately. We heard it, the station said. We are still here because of you. Michael closed his eyes for a moment. The whisper had passed through this place years ago, long before it reached the wider galaxy. Humans had been here. They had helped, then left without claiming anything. Jessica saved the message. Her hands shook slightly. They remember, she said. Yes, Michael replied. That's why the empires tremble. As they prepared to leave, Michael looked at the growing map of lights. It was not an empire map. It showed no borders. Only connections. Humans were moving again. Slowly. Carefully. Not with fleets but with presence. Not to rule but to remind. Behind them the darkness stayed dark. But along the path of the whisper, light remained. David stood alone at the center of the council chamber. The room was wide and tall, built for voices that liked to echo. Seats curved around him, filled with alien leaders of many shapes and colors. Some had eyes that never blinked. Some hid behind masks. All of them expected the same thing. A threat. Ashley sat behind a clear screen near the wall. She said nothing. Her job was to record every word, every pause, every breath. History often lived in silence more than sound. The chamber doors had closed minutes ago. No guards moved. No weapons were visible, but David could feel them. The air was tight with waiting. An elder from the ruling empire spoke first. Its voice was sharp and careful. Humans return after long silence, it said. The stars whisper your presence. Explain your intent. David did not rush to answer. He placed his hands together and bowed slightly. The motion caused a ripple of movement through the chamber. Some leaned forward. Others stiffened. We are not here to threaten, David said calmly. We are here to speak. A low sound moved through the room. Disbelief. Anger. Fear. You move fleets, another leader said. Borders close. War stop. Do not pretend innocence. David met the speaker's gaze. We did not tell them to stop, he replied. We did not tell them to fear. Then why do they? The leader demanded. David paused. Ashley marked the silence. It lasted exactly 7 seconds. Because memory travels faster than weapons, David said. The leaders shifted. Some exchanged private signals. Others stayed very still. David continued, his voice even. Long ago humans were loud. We fought. We pushed. We learned what that cost. Then we stayed. We watched. We helped quietly. When we left, we did not erase ourselves. A third leader rose from its seat. You expect us to believe this is peace? It said. Your whisper reaches every system. Yes, David said. But it does not command. It reminds. The words settled into the room like dust. Ashley watched closely. She had recorded battles before. Shouting. Threats. Demands. This was different. The leaders were confused, and confusion was dangerous but also powerful. What do you want? The elder asked at last. David smiled gently. Time, he said. And patience. Laughter burst from one side of the chamber. It was short and bitter. You ask empires to wait while humans move freely? David turned toward the sound. We move slowly, he said. And we do not take. The elder lifted a hand. The laughter stopped. You offer no alliance, the elder said. No trade demand. No warning. That is correct, David replied. Then why come at all? David looked up at the high ceiling where stars were projected in soft light. Because fear grows in silence, he said. And silence is what you believed we became. The room grew quiet again. Ashley noticed something change. The leaders were no longer leaning forward. They were listening but not hunting. Another voice spoke, softer this time. If humans wished conquest, this would be the moment. Yes, David said. And that is why we did not choose it. The whisper spread while they spoke. Ashley could see updates scrolling across her screen. Border alerts downgraded. Fleets paused longer than planned. Messages marked urgent were reclassified as caution. Worlds were choosing not to fight. One leader asked, what happens if we attack you? David answered without anger. "We will endure," he said. "As we always have." That answer caused more fear than any threat could have. Ashley recorded a private note. Restraint recognized as strength. The elder leaned back slowly. "You speak as if time belongs to you." David shook his head. "No," he said. "Time belongs to everyone. That is why we protect it." Hours passed. Questions came and went. Some leaders tested him with sharp words. Others tried to find weakness. David did not argue. He listened. When he spoke, it was simple and clear. He spoke of worlds saved without flags raised. Of human crews who stayed behind to repair stations no one owned. Of choices made when no one was watching. Ashley watched disbelief turn into discomfort. The whisper grew wider but softer. It no longer felt like a signal. It felt like weather. Always there. Always moving. A young leader finally asked the question many feared. "What if we choose war anyway?" David looked at Ashley for a brief moment. Then back to the room. "Then we will still offer time," he said. "What you do with it will define you." That was the moment the chamber changed. Empires were built on force. On quick answers. On fear used as control. What David offered could not be fought easily. It asked them to look inward. Ashley ended the recording when the meeting closed. No treaties were signed. No demands were made. The leaders left quietly, deep in thought. Outside the chamber, Ashley finally spoke. "They didn't expect that," she said. David nodded. "Neither did we once." "Do you think it worked?" she asked. David looked out at the stars beyond the station glass. The whisper flowed through them, gentle and steady. "They are afraid," he said. "But not of us." Ashley smiled faintly. "Of themselves?" "Yes," David replied. "And of what restraint can do." Across the galaxy, empires trembled. Not because humans returned with fire, but because they returned with control. They understood too late that power did not always strike. Sometimes it waited. Daniel had seen many quiet places, but the old frontier felt different. Space there was not empty. It was tired. The stars burned dimmer along the edge of known space. Old stations drifted without power. Broken habitats spun slowly, their lights long dead. This was where empires once pushed too far and then pulled back, leaving scars behind. Daniel guided the ship with care. He did not rush. The engine stayed low, steady, respectful. Lauren stood beside him, watching long-range scans scroll across the screen. "The whisper is stronger here," she said softly. Daniel nodded. He felt it too. Not as sound but as weight. As presence. They had followed the trail farther than most human crews. Beyond trade routes. Beyond patrol lines. Into places where maps grew thin and warnings grew thick. The frontier had a reputation. Ships vanished here. Trust did not. As they crossed the boundary marker, old systems woke around them. Passive sensors blinked on. Ancient defense platforms tracked them, then stopped. "They recognize us," Lauren said. Daniel frowned. "Or they remember us." The whisper changed as they moved deeper. It was no longer a single thread moving through the dark. It layered over itself, soft voices joining others. Not louder. Fuller. A chorus. Each tone carried a moment. A memory. Help given in silence. Repairs done without payment. Evacuations made when no one else came. Human ships holding lines long enough for others to escape. Lauren closed her eyes for a moment. "It's not calling," she said. "It's reminding." Their first stop was an abandoned relay station. Its hull was cracked, patched with old human alloys. Emergency lights flickered weakly as they docked. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. Dust floated in slow clouds. Daniel walked carefully through the corridor, running his hand along the wall. "This place shouldn't still exist," he said. Lauren checked the logs. "It does because someone stayed," she replied. The logs showed it clearly. Years ago, when pirates ruled the frontier, a human crew had remained behind. They repaired the station again and again. They shared power. Shared food. When danger came, they did not fight unless forced. When it left, they stayed until others could stand on their own. The crew never claimed the station. They simply left. As Daniel and Lauren departed, nearby ships appeared on sensors. Not attacking. Watching. Old frontier vessels with mismatched parts and cautious movements. Daniel opened a channel. "We're just passing through," he said calmly. A long pause followed. Then a reply came. "We know," a rough voice said. "We heard the name." Lauren exchanged a look with Daniel. More ships powered down weapons as the human vessel passed. Guns cooled. Targeting systems went dark. Not because of fear alone, but because the whisper felt familiar. They reached a border world next. It was poor, scarred by old wars. Cities clung to the surface like stubborn weeds. As they entered orbit, defense cannons tracked them, then slowly lowered. The planet's governor requested a meeting. Daniel and Lauren went together, unarmed. The governor was old, his face marked by stress and survival. He studied them carefully. "You're human?" he said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "You've come back," the governor said. It was not a question. Lauren spoke gently. "We never fully left." The governor laughed once, quietly. "You stayed longer than anyone," he said. "Longer than you had to." He told them stories. Of human medics who worked through bombardments. Of engineers who fixed water systems while cities burned around them. Of ships that did not flee when stronger fleets arrived. "You gave help," he said. "You did not take." The whisper grew stronger on that world. Not as a signal but as shared memory. Children looked up at the sky and felt safer without knowing why. As Daniel and Lauren returned to their ship, a message spread across the frontier. Human presence confirmed. No aggression detected. Ships across the region powered down engines. Patrols stood down. Old enemies paused their feuds. They remembered a time when someone stayed with them at their worst. The chorus carried one truth. Humans did not abandon the frontier when it became hard. They reached the farthest edge days later. Beyond it lay nothing but deep dark space. No stars close enough to matter. No worlds worth claiming. Daniel cut the engines. The ship drifted. Lauren watched the stars. "This is where it ends," she said. "No," Daniel replied. "This is where it waits." The whisper flowed past them out into the dark. It carried no orders. No threats. Only a promise. That when things broke, humans would not look away. Across the frontier, empires felt it. Not fear this time. Something heavier. Responsibility. They had ruled through force. Through taking. Now they faced a presence built on staying. Daniel logged the final note for their mission. Simple words. Frontier stable. Human presence acknowledged. No conflict. Lauren smiled faintly. "They believe us now," she said. Daniel looked out into the dark where the chorus continued, calm and steady. "Yes," he said. "Because we kept our word." The stars carried the name onward. And the frontier, for the first time in a long while, felt held together. John sat alone in the records hall while the galaxy grew quiet. The hall was not grand. It was small, clean, and built for patience. Soft lights glowed above rows of data pillars. Each one held stories, maps, and choices that shaped entire civilizations. John had worked here most of his life. He knew how heavy a single line of text could be. Before him floated the old charts. They showed the galaxy as it used to be. Borders sharp and thick. Warning symbols bright and loud. Human space marked with faded notes. Rumor. Threat. Unstable. John looked at those words for a long time. Then he began to change them. Outside the hall, traffic moved slowly. No alarms sounded. No fleets rushed to battle. Across thousands of systems, ships held position or powered down. Leaders delayed orders. Soldiers waited without fear burning in their chests. The galaxy was settling. John pulled up the latest reports. They came from every direction. Frontier worlds. Core empires. Independent systems long ignored. The words were different now. Human vessel-assisted repairs. Conflict paused after human contact. No aggression detected. Presence calming. John breathed out slowly. He remembered the early days when the whisper first appeared in the records. How the halls filled with panic. How old powers demanded answers. How fear raced faster than truth. Now fear was tired. The stars still whispered the name. It never stopped. But it no longer caused panic alerts. It no longer triggered weapons systems. It had become background sound. Like gravity. Like time. John opened the master chart. This was the record that mattered most. It shaped how future generations would see the present. Lies here could last centuries. Truth here could prevent wars. He removed the old marker from human space. Rumor. Fear. Unknown. He replaced it with new words. Steady presence. He paused before saving. Memories crossed his mind. Reports of humans staying behind when evacuation orders were given. Of ships holding position without firing. Of leaders confused by offers of time instead of threats. Empires had trembled not because humans returned, but because humans did not rush. John finalized the change. The system accepted it without protest. As the chart updated, other charts shifted too. Borders softened. Neutral zones expanded. Conflict probability dropped across multiple regions. The galaxy responded as if it had been waiting for permission to rest. A message arrived from a distant council. Simple. Direct. We acknowledge the update. John did not reply. He did not need to. He moved on to the next record. Historical classification. Humans, aggressive expansionist species. John erased it. Humans, endurance-based civilization with long-term stability behavior. He smiled faintly. It was not poetic, but it was honest. Outside, a young clerk watched the charts change in real time. She had never seen borders move without violence before. "Sir," she asked quietly, "is it really over?" John considered the question. "No," he said. "But it's different now." She nodded, unsure but calmer than she would have been days ago. As hours passed, confirmations arrived. Trade lanes reopened carefully. Patrol fleets returned home. Long wars shifted into talks that did not collapse after the first disagreement. Empires listened. Not to commands. To silence shaped by restraint. John leaned back and looked up at the projected stars on the ceiling. They drifted slowly, each one marked with quiet data. The whisper moved through them all, unchanged. He thought about what made it powerful. It was not strength alone. It was consistency. Humans had not appeared once with force and vanished. They had stayed. Again and again. Long enough to be remembered. Long enough to be trusted even by those who feared them. Another update arrived. A former hostile empire had reclassified human presence as stabilizing influence. John allowed himself a small laugh. Years ago, that empire would have burned worlds to erase that idea. Now it wrote it into law. He signed the final record with his name. John Mercer, Archivist of Interstellar Record. The act felt heavier than it looked. With that signature, the age of rumor ended. The galaxy would not forget humans again. Not because they demanded memory, but because they earned it. As John stood to leave, the hall lights dimmed to rest mode. The charts held steady. No alerts blinked. No warnings flashed. The stars whispered the name once more, soft and constant. Every empire heard it. And this time they listened without fear. Not because they were weak, but because they understood. The galaxy did not need louder power. It needed steady hands. John walked out into the quiet corridor, leaving the records behind. Behind him, the charts remained unchanged, holding a truth that would last. Humans were no longer a shadow. They were a presence. And the stars, patient as ever, carried that truth forward.